Everybody wave. Wave. I don't want to wave. I don't want to wave.
Oh, that's why you did your hair. You knew you were
Did you pause extra long on Mallory because she did her hair?
I didn't.
When she's on YouTube, somebody email you, hey, who's the chick in the...
With the poofy hair.
All right, now that I've got you guys panned, we'll go ahead and get started. All right, 2%. 2% of what Jesus said was considered authentic, as it's presented in the Gospels by the Jesus Seminar. I read this statistic in The Case for Christ by Lee Strobel recently, but that wasn't the first time I had heard about it. A couple months back, Erwin Lutzer had mentioned this in one of his teachings on Moody Radio. I listen to it in the morning when I come to work, and he didn't use a lot of flattering language to talk about these guys. But it definitely piqued my interest, so I wanted to look into this and investigate this group from both sides. The Jesus Seminar is a group of liberal biblical scholars who attempted to find the real Jesus. That was their goal when they set out. And the real Jesus, I mean the real words of Jesus and actions in some cases. My intentions are to inform you about the origins and the membership of the Jesus Seminar, to identify some preconceptions and ideals that they had going into this, to discuss the methods they used to establish what was authentic in the Gospels and what wasn't, and to show you guys some of their conclusions and publications. My intentions are not to critique their findings, but rather to inform you about how they got there, would be the best way to put it. According to the Westar Institute, which is the parent organization that the Jesus Seminar started with, the Jesus Seminar was started in 1985. So it's been a while. And of course, their goal was to show what the real Jesus was. Brad Bromley is a critic who wrote a critical article about this particular group, and he described them as men and women who could be described as the elite of liberal scholarship. So there's no denying, even from the critics, that these are sharp, educated people. No one's denying that fact. But in order to understand the results of this group, you really have to consider their preconceptions. A man by the name of Robert Funk was a founding member of the group. And in the first meeting of the Jesus Seminar in 1985, he said that the Bible, like all histories, is a fiction. So you can see that coming into this, they see the Bible is a fictional document. Additionally, Bromley points out in his article that according to the Jesus Seminar, Jesus never made any actual claims to be the Messiah. So of course they would reject anything that contradicted that in the Gospels. And additionally, they don't believe that anything would be authentic that was recorded after a certain oral time period, which was 20 years. In other words, if it was written down 20 years after the event occurred, 20 years after Jesus' death, then it was going to be subject to corruption through oral transition. And so it had to be within 20 years of Jesus' death to be considered authentic. Probably the best summation of their preconceptions was in The Case for Christ. In one of the interviews that Lee Strobel did, a man said that the Jesus Seminar generally does not believe that the Gospels are reliable. And I think that's a really good way to sum up how they approached this. Now, Bromley went on to describe their voting methods, and those methods are also published on Westar Institute's website. But they went about this very democratically, and they did it with beads. They would read a section of gospel, a phrase that Jesus was supposed to say, and they would vote on it. And a red bead would mean that Jesus said it, or that's Jesus. Now you go to the pink bead. The pink bead would be Jesus probably said something like this, or it sounds like Jesus. The gray bead was Jesus didn't say it, but the ideas are close to his. And of course, the dreaded black bead, which would be Jesus didn't say this, or there's been some sort of mistake. Probably, more importantly, something's been added to the text. In other words, they would reject the comment. If you look up on the screen here, you can see a page copied out of the Five Gospels, which was a publication that they put out after their findings. And it's called the Five Gospels because they put the Gospel of Thomas in there, the apocryphal Gospel of Thomas. At any rate, this is a section of Matthew, and you can see how the text is color-coded with the black, gray, red, pink to show what they felt was authentic. And of course, in this case, red would be the only thing authentic. And of course, if you look at that, there's not much red. With these conclusions, Lee Strobel built some statistics that he put in his book, and this slide shows those statistics. 82% of the sayings of Christ were considered not authentic at all. And then 16% were questionable, which would be like a pink gray bead. And only 2% were considered authentic. It's pretty easy to get there if you consider like the Gospel of John was probably completely rejected because it was written after that 20-year oral period. In fact, there's no red statements at all in the Gospel of John. So, what this all boils down to is that the Jesus Seminar is a group of liberal theologians, biblical scholars, that came to the process of establishing who the real Jesus was with a lot of preconceptions. The most important would be that they consider the Bible fictional. They used a very democratic process to vote on this. But ultimately, if you disagree with the Jesus Seminar, it's going to be based off of their preconceptions and ideals, not their mythology. And if you were to use the same methods, but come to the process with different preconceptions, you would have completely different results.